Machiavelli is one of the most influential and controversial thinkers in history. Best known for his political treatise, The Prince, an evil and immoral playbook banned by the church and used by history's worst tyrants to gain and keep power. At least that's how popular culture depicts it. But if you dig a little deeper, Machiavelli was more than that. He was a polymath, a poet, a diplomat, a playwright. And contrary to popular belief, he was not this blind advocate of tyranny. Every prince ought to desire to be considered clement and not cruel. That was him in The Prince. And as a leader of a team myself, his teachings helped me manage people in an effective way. So in this video, I want to share with you my 10 favorite quotes and heuristics that I learned from Niccolo Machiavelli, and that will help you avoid costly mistakes dealing with human nature. I actually got introduced to Machiavelli growing up in Morocco. I was curious to learn more about it when I learned that it was the bedside book of the late Moroccan king Hassan II. Hassan II had a tumultuous reign. He dodged multiple coups, was betrayed by his closest advisors, but survived. So he had to navigate these highly unstable years of Moroccan history, so The Prince being his favorite book was not surprising. But I didn't pick up The Prince until I've read the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, who I interviewed on the channel if you want to check out the video. And I only started reading it when I was promoted to manage a team in my career. And one of the first quotes from Machiavelli that really stuck with me was, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous, and as long as you succeed, they are yours entirely." A lot of the things in The Prince can be too harsh and can even make you uncomfortable when reading them. But once you're thrown into the real world, into the corporate world or business, you quickly realize that humans are self-interested. We're greedy, fearful, envious. People are there to protect their interests and their turf. And you realize that what drives people is incentives. And what stops them from doing harm is disincentives. People you've hired, trained, and invested in will pursue better opportunities they get elsewhere. People you stood up for will let you down when you need them the most. Of course it hurts, and especially the first times you get burned. But little by little, you lose your naivete. Now the goal is not to be cynical about human relationships, but to be realistic and accept human nature. Coming from this paradigm, you're more robust when dealing with humans. And the upside is you'd be occasionally surprised by the altruistic and benevolent that show up in your life. 2. A prince who does not understand the art of war cannot be respected by his soldiers. Of course, this does not only apply to warfare. If you don't understand the ins and outs of your field, if your team is questioning your competence, there's no way in hell they'll follow your lead. And they have every reason not to. And we see it a lot in the corporate world. Managers and leaders who have no idea what's going on. We put leaders in positions to lead others because they're more competent. They can handle more responsibility and they can train their people. In fields like business, there's a real feedback from the market, and if you're not competent, you get exposed. Other fields like politics, where there's no skin in the game, some people can fake their way into positions of leadership for years or even decades. Personally, I didn't feel confident to lead others until I was the top performer in that role I was gonna lead. That gave them proof that I can walk the walk and that I'm not asking them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. 3. In the midst of murders and civil wars, our republic became stronger. This is one of my favorite quotes from Machiavelli. He continues, "A little bit of agitation gives resources to souls, and what makes the species prosper isn't peace, but freedom." Good old Antifragility. Human gains virtues, strength, and wisdom through external stress. We overcompensate, and our physiology and our psychology gain strength and wisdom. You can watch my video on Nassim Taleb where I explain the concept of antifragility more in depth. But a good leader should experience adversity on a regular basis, either real or manufactured, to keep his strength. A wise prince, when he has the opportunity, ought with craft to foster some animosity against himself, so that having crushed it, his renown may rise higher. Crushing enemies, competitors, and overcoming adversity makes you more worthy of your position when dealing with your people. 4. The first opinion which one forms of a prince is by observing the men he has around him. This is a lesson I learned last year. I noticed that the higher-ups of the company observe who you bring into your team, and they unconsciously associate who you hire to your character. Machiavelli adds when talking about people you hire, when they are capable and faithful, he may always be considered wise, because he has known how to recognize the capable and to keep them faithful. And throughout my career, I was shocked to see that a lot of smart people surround themselves with dumb people just because they're poor judges of character. A leader must cultivate the skill of hiring, knowing which questions to ask the potential employee, putting them under pressure, reading their character is crucial. 5. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. In fields like politics, perception is everything. There is no skin in the game to really filter the competent from the incompetent. The cosmetic, rhetoric, and appearance play a huge role to get someone elected, especially in our modern era. In business, appearance matters less, but it's still a huge component. To get promoted, to sell your product or service, to build a brand. Amplifying mimesis by appearing desired by people will make you even more desirable. Machiavelli understood that for a statesman, appearing virtuous is even more important than being virtuous. A lot of state leaders are playing this game. They appear to be religious only to be cruel when necessary. 6. Make mistakes of ambition and not mistakes of sloth. I love this quote, and he adds, develop the strength to do bold things, not the strength to suffer. A courageous life is the only life worth living. If you're not willing to take risks as a leader, you have no business leading others. Unfortunately, in fields like modern warfare, these changed drastically. Today, cowardly nerds, completely sheltered from the risk of the battlefield, can kill thousands of people at a distance with a push of a button. Compare that with Napoleon, who allegedly used to show up on the battlefield and lead people from the front, literally risking his life. We humans instinctually admire boldness and courage, and it's a costly signal that you're worthy of admiration. And when going through adversity, your people will observe your attitude. Even if you feel defeated, you need to be able to communicate hope to your people, that you're absolutely able to overcome your challenges. 7. It is far safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. This is one of the most controversial quotes from Machiavelli. But if you really study The Prince, you realize that he's not a blind advocate of cruelty or tyranny. He wrote about this. To keep his servant honest and loyal, the prince must study him, honor him, enrich him, do him kindnesses, sharing with him the honors and cares. You can absolutely drive people through fear. But what I observed from my experience and studying the greats is that when driven by fear, people will do the minimum necessary to avoid punishment. But if you really want to get the best out of your people as a leader, you need to reward them. Praise them in public, reward them, and be emotionally intelligent when sharing feedback. People don't want to be oppressed. When going through adversity, the only way to feel secure in your power is when your people are friendly to you. And from my personal experience, people will go far and beyond what you expect them to do when treated this way. Sometimes you need to be ruthless. It is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong and to make use of it or not, according to necessity. I had to face this a few times throughout my career, when a toxic employee will destroy morale of your team. They infect their psyche, their motivational level. Here, even if you're a virtuous person, you need to absolutely cut that person as soon as possible. 8. A prince ought above all things to keep his men well organized and drilled. He ought never, therefore, to have out of his thoughts the subject of war, and in peace he should addict himself more to its exercise than in war. This he can do in two ways, by action or by study. You need to accustom your team and yourself to hardships. Look, I'm not in the military by any way, but in corporate sales, which is my profession, constantly training, coaching, and drilling your team is one of the main components of success. Train when the stakes are low. You don't want them to make the wrong kind of mistakes when the stakes are high. There are periods when everything is going great, and that's exactly when you feel like you want to skip the training sessions. That's exactly when you don't want to skip them. Keep your edge and don't let success make you lazy. 9. To exercise the intellect, the prince should read histories and study there the actions of illustrious men. One thing that's completely overlooked when talking about Machiavelli is his erudition. The guy studied history and humanities broadly, which on top of his real-life experience gave him this sharp sense of observation. His erudition shows in his other works. He wrote the Discourses, which is a longer book on ancient Rome. He wrote a book on the history of Florence, a book on warfare. He wrote scandalous plays as well as poems. You can't explore these broad subjects if you don't have a solid foundation and erudition. As leaders or aspiring leaders, we should allocate the time to study history, philosophy, literature, sociology, anything that explains to us the human condition and human behavior. It gives you a solid foundation to avoid costly mistakes when dealing with humans. It also gives you an edge compared to other leaders. You can't believe the amount of leaders who rise at the top and end up falling because of a stupid mistake. They're not able to see patterns nor identify catastrophes early. Exercise your intellect through experience and study. And lastly, fortune. It is seen that she allows herself to be mastered by the adventurous rather than the cautious. Machiavelli believed that half of our actions are directed by luck and fortune, and the other half by ourselves. He believed that the bold and courageous can master luck compared to the cautious. At the same time, he emphasizes that a prince who relied solely on fortune is more fragile. The one who relied on fortune the least is established the strongest. Skill and character will help a prince maintain his power longer. To me, that links directly to fragility and what Nassim Taleb warns against. Of course, we can't predict the future and what misfortunes will inevitably come our way, but at least we can shelter ourselves and build the foundations that will allow us not to be completely destroyed by it. Those were the 10 quotes and heuristics that really stuck with me when studying Machiavelli. I highly recommend reading the whole book. It's a lengthy book that stood the test of time, and it's still as relevant today as it was when it was written 500 years ago. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next video.